What if I told you that the way you are breathing right now, in this very moment, is the invisible force shaping the life you are living? That every shallow inhale, every rushed exhale, is encoding information into the quantum field itself. That your reality isn't only built by your choices, your beliefs, or your emotions, but by the rhythm of your breath, 23,000 times a day. And what if I told you this? The reason most of your personal growth techniques, your affirmations, your visualizations, your vision boards, your endless effort have failed isn't because you're not disciplined enough, or positive enough, or spiritual enough. It's because your breath has been unconsciously broadcasting chaos to the very field that mirrors reality back to you. That's not just poetic language. That's measurable science. The HeartMath Institute discovered that your breath pattern creates electromagnetic fields that extend at least 8 feet in every direction around your body. These fields shift dramatically depending on whether you breathe shallow and anxious or deep and coherent. You are literally broadcasting your inner state to everyone you meet. But here's the deeper layer, the one almost nobody ever talks about. Your breath is also encoding reality itself. Imagine that every inhale is a brushstroke on the canvas of the quantum field. Every exhale is an imprint in the invisible architecture of possibility. When you breathe from fear, you literally write fear into the fabric of your life. When you breathe from peace, you inscribe peace. And here's the hook. Almost nobody realizes it. Why? Because 99.9% of your breaths are happening unconsciously. You breathe while scrolling your phone. You breathe while rushing through traffic. You breathe shallowly while stressing over deadlines, while replaying conversations, while worrying about bills, while lying awake at 3 in the morning. Breath has become automatic, mechanical, survival-based. And so your outer world keeps mirroring your inner turbulence. You keep wondering why life doesn't change, why you feel stuck, why despite all your effort, nothing seems to shift. But the truth is this, your breath is the first language of reality. And until you change that language, nothing else will stick. Ancient wisdom traditions knew this. They never treated breath as mere oxygen intake. In Sanskrit, it was called Prana, life force. In Hebrew, Ruach, the divine wind. In Greek, Pneuma, spirit itself. In every ancient culture, breath was seen as the bridge between human and divine, matter and energy, body and consciousness. They understood something modern life has forgotten. To master your breath is to master your reality. But here's the twist. You don't need years of esoteric training or complex rituals or elaborate breathing techniques. What I'm about to reveal is stunningly simple, a 4-stage method I call the observer breath. When practiced, it shifts you instantly from victim of circumstance to conscious architect of your life. This isn't theory. Neuroscience, quantum physics, and bioenergetics all point to the same truth. Conscious observation collapses possibility into reality. Your breath is the most direct way to become that observer. Stable, clear, coherent. So let me ask you this. Are you ready to stop being the reactor, tossed around by circumstances, and become the observer, the one around whom reality reorganizes itself? Because that's exactly what we're about to do. Take a moment right now. Don't change your breath, just notice it. Where does it sit? In your chest? Your throat? Is it shallow? Is it tight? Or is it deep, relaxed, flowing? Whatever it is, that rhythm is broadcasting information into the quantum field. It's not just keeping you alive, it's keeping you in a particular timeline, See, your life didn't begin with your first thought. It didn't begin with your first cry. It began with your first breath, the inhale that pulled your soul into this dimension. And one day when your last exhale leaves your body, this life will end the same way. Breath is the bookends of your existence. But in between those two moments, breath is writing the story of your life, line by line, without you even realizing it. Think about this. Every emotion has a corresponding breath pattern. Anxiety is shallow, rapid, erratic. Anger is sharp, constricted. Depression is heavy, collapsed. Peace is deep and slow. Joy is expansive, light. Which means your breath is not just reflecting your emotions, it's creating them. The distinction between automated breathing and conscious breathing is the distinction between unconscious living and conscious creation. Automated breathing happens to you. Conscious breathing happens through you. And when you shift into that observer state, when you're not just breathing, but aware of breathing, you unlock a portal that ancient mystics called the gateway to the divine. Modern neuroscience agrees. Dr. Joe Dispenza's research shows that just 7 minutes of conscious observation, 7 minutes of watching breath without judgment, begins rewiring neural pathways that have held you captive for decades. In other words, when you observe your breath, you're not just calming down, you're literally creating a new self. But let's go deeper, because this is where the observer effect comes in. Quantum physics tells us that until observed, particles exist as a cloud of possibilities, a wave function. When an observer focuses attention, the wave collapses into a fixed reality. That's how observation creates form. But here's the key. The observer is not just your conscious mind. It's your subconscious, it's your heart, it's your entire nervous system, which means that even if you consciously want abundance, love, or peace, if your breath is still encoding fear and scarcity into the field, that's the timeline that collapses. That's why so many people feel stuck. They're affirming success while breathing scarcity. They're visualizing health while exhaling stress. They're repeating love mantras while inhaling loneliness. And the field doesn't respond to their words, it responds to their breath. Now imagine this. What if every breath you take could become an act of creation? What if, instead of 23,000 wasted breaths a day, you turned even a fraction of them into coherent broadcasts to the universe? What if the simple act of observing and aligning your breath was the missing key to manifestation? Because that's what it is. Let's step into the 4 stages of the observer breath method. Stage 1 is awareness, simply noticing your breath as it is. Not judging, not fixing, just observing. This immediately shifts you into the role of the witness, pulling you out of unconscious identification with thoughts. Stage 2 is coherence. Begin lengthening your inhales and exhales to a smooth, even rhythm. The HeartMath Institute found that 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out creates instant heart-brain alignment. This coherence field doesn't just calm your nervous system, it amplifies your electromagnetic signal, making it strong and steady enough for the quantum field to read clearly. Stage 3 is intention. Once you've entered coherence, place a simple, felt intention into the rhythm of your breath. Not words, not desperate desire, just the emotion of already having it. If you're calling in abundance, breathe the feeling of, I already have enough. If you're calling in love, breathe as though your heart is already open. Stage 4 is surrender. This is the paradox that makes it work. You breathe your intention into the field, and then you let go. You stop gripping, you stop controlling, You trust the field to mirror back what you've already embodied. This cycle, awareness, coherence, intention, surrender, is the observer breath. And when practiced, it collapses the timeline where you are struggling into the timeline where you are already free. But here's the deeper truth. You don't need to wait for your next meditation session or your evening routine or some perfect environment. You can use this method right now in traffic, at work, in conversation, even while listening to this video. Because breath is always here, always with you, always ready to become the bridge between the life you have and the life you want. Now let's explore the quantum gap. This is one of the most overlooked secrets in both ancient wisdom and modern science. Between every inhale and every exhale, there is a pause, a moment of stillness. Most people rush past it without noticing. But this gap is not empty, it is infinite. Ancient Egyptian initiates called it the silence of Ra, the pause where the sun god rested between creation breaths. Tibetan masters trained in entering this gap, calling it the doorway to the void. And today, quantum physics validates it. In the space between one state and another, probability collapses into possibility. When you rest your awareness in this gap, you access the zero-point field. In that stillness, you're no longer transmitting chaos. You're transmitting pure coherence. And in that moment, intention crystallizes instantly. Imagine it like the pause between musical notes. Without the silence, there would be no music, only noise. In the same way, without the pauses in your breath, there would be no rhythm to your reality. When you rest in that gap, you become the conductor of the symphony of your life. And here's where it gets even more extraordinary. Your breath doesn't just affect you, it affects everyone around you. Studies show your coherent breathing can regulate the nervous systems of people up to 8 feet away. Children especially are sensitive. They immediately reflect the state of the parent's breath field. Think about the implications. Every room you walk into, every conversation you have, every interaction, you are broadcasting either chaos or coherence, and others are responding unconsciously. That's why some people feel magnetic, calming, inspiring, while others feel draining. It's not charisma, it's coherence. And beyond human interaction, your breath field influences reality itself. Research by scientists like Fritz Albert Popp and Nassim Haramein suggests that the photons emitted by your cells, tiny packets of light, are modulated by your breath patterns, which means every conscious breath is literally sculpting probability fields in space-time. When you breathe in chaos, you collapse timelines of chaos. When you breathe in coherence, you collapse timelines of harmony. Do you see the power of this? So let's continue this journey deeper, because here's the truth. Once you begin working with the observer breath, you realize you're not just calming your mind or regulating your nervous system. You're literally rewriting your story in real time. And here's the hook. This isn't just about you. Every conscious breath you take doesn't only shift your personal life. It ripples into the collective field of human consciousness. Every inhale of coherence is like a vote cast for a more peaceful planet. Every exhale of alignment strengthens the blueprint for a new Earth. Let me explain why. Your body as a living temple. Ancient civilizations knew that the human body was not just flesh and bone. It was a sacred architecture, a temple of consciousness. Egyptians mapped energy centers as chambers of initiation. Yogis spoke of chakras as lotus flowers blooming with energy. The breath was the master key that unlocked each door. Today, neuroscience calls it the vagus nerve. Polyvagal states, and heart-brain coherence. Different language, same truth. Your breath patterns determine which inner chamber you inhabit. When you breathe shallow, you're trapped in the basement of survival, fight, flight, freeze. When you breathe deeply into coherence, you climb to higher chambers, love, creativity, expansion, clarity. Every chamber you activate doesn't just change your inner world. It broadcasts a new signal outward, reorganizing your outer world to match. This is why the ancients said, as within, so without. Healing ancestral patterns. Now let's go even deeper. Did you know your breath carries the imprints of generations before you? Epigenetics shows us that trauma can be inherited. If your grandmother experienced terror and never resolved it, the breathing pattern of that fear, shallow, constricted, rapid, can echo in your nervous system today, even if you've never faced the same trauma. This is why you sometimes feel anxiety about things you've never lived through. The breath carries memory. But here's the empowering truth. Just as patterns are inherited, they can be transformed. When you choose conscious breathing, you're not just healing yourself. You're healing backward through your lineage and forward into future generations. Every coherent breath you take is like sending a wave of healing back through time, dissolving the imprints of fear, scarcity, or silence your ancestors carried. And every exhale sends a blessing forward, gifting your children and grandchildren a freer nervous system. You become a bridge across time itself. The breath field and collective consciousness. Now let's widen the lens even more. Because your breath doesn't just shape your body or your family line, it shapes the world. The HeartMath Global Coherence Project has shown that when large groups of people breathe and meditate together, measurable shifts happen in the Earth's electromagnetic field. Random number generators across the planet begin producing patterns that are less random. In other words, collective coherence organizes chaos into order. Think about that. A group of humans breathing in unison can literally calm the electromagnetic field of the planet. Now imagine what happens when you practice this daily. You may not see the immediate ripple, but you are part of a larger wave. And as more people awaken to the observer breath, we reach a tipping point, a phase transition, a shift in the collective field where peace, love, and alignment become the dominant frequency. This isn't New Age fantasy, it's physics. Coherence begets coherence. Resonance entrains resonance. The field responds to the strongest, clearest signals. And when enough of us breathe consciously, the entire collective timeline shifts. The quantum mechanics of breath. Let's bring this back to quantum science for a moment. Dr. Fritz Albert Popp discovered that every cell in your body emits light, bio-photons. When you're stressed, that light is chaotic. When you're coherent, the light becomes ordered. Your breath directly modulates this light. Now here's where it gets fascinating. These photons don't just stay inside you. They interact with the photons in the field around you, creating interference patterns, waves that overlap and influence probability. That means every breath you take is a vote in the quantum lottery of your life. Chaotic breath collapses chaotic timelines. Coherent breath collapses coherent timelines. This is why miracles and synchronicities multiply when you commit to breath practice. It's not coincidence, it's physics. You've shifted your probability distribution. The observer's paradox. But here's the paradox nobody tells you. The more desperately you try to use breath to get something, money, love, health, the more resistance you create. Because the very desperation in your breath broadcasts lack. The true mastery is breathing not from need, but from being. Not from, I want this, but from, I already am this. This is why the fourth stage of the observer breath, surrender, is the most powerful. When you release the grip, the field finally has room to deliver. Think about times in your life when things just flowed. You met the right person by accident. You got the opportunity you weren't even chasing. You had the breakthrough idea in the shower. What was the common factor? You weren't gripping. You weren't forcing. You were breathing freely. That's the observer breath in action, whether you knew it or not. Practical integration, living the breath. So how do you integrate this into daily life? Let's make it simple. Morning, before you check your phone, sit up, close your eyes and breathe 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out for 5 minutes. Drop one simple intention into your breath. Not a goal, not a wish, just a feeling. Trust, love, ease. Let that set your frequency for the day. Throughout the day, whenever stress arises, don't try to fix the situation first. Return to breath. 3 coherent breaths. That's enough to reset your nervous system and broadcast a new signal. Evening. Before sleep, place one hand on your chest, one on your belly, and breathe slow, coherent breaths until your body softens. Whisper gratitude into your exhale. Drift off, broadcasting peace into your dreams. Do this daily and watch how reality reorganizes itself. The mountain and the hurricane. Let me give you one last metaphor. Imagine a hurricane, winds swirling at 150 miles per hour. Chaos everywhere. But at the very center, the eye is perfect calm, stillness, silence. That's what the observer breath does. It doesn't stop life's storms. It anchors you in the eye of the hurricane. And from that center, the entire system organizes around you. This is why stillness is not weakness. Stillness is the highest power. It's the frequency that bends reality. The 0-point field of possibility. And here's the final secret. When you breathe into stillness, you access the 0-point field. This is the state where all futures exist at once, waiting for consciousness to choose. In this space, you're not trying to manifest from ego. You're allowing the soul to select the highest possibility. Sometimes it's what you thought you wanted. Sometimes it's something unimaginable, but perfect for your evolution. This is the difference between ego manifestation and soul manifestation. The ego uses breath to try and get. The soul uses breath to allow and become. And the soul always knows better. Closing invitation. So here's my invitation. Right now, take a single conscious breath. Inhale slowly, exhale fully, and as you do, whisper silently within. I choose to breathe as the observer. Not as the reactor, not as the victim, not as the controller, as the observer, the one through whom reality organizes itself. Comment that below, right now. Let it be your declaration to the field. And if this journey has stirred something in you, subscribe, not just to this channel, but to this frequency. Because when you align with this practice, you're not just transforming your life. You're helping to transform our collective future. So breathe, not to survive, but to remember. Not to escape, but to embody. Not to control, but to create. Because breath is the key, and you are the door. Step through,